and welcome to the Sustaining Soils podcast brought to you by Valent Biosciences. I'm your host, Lisa Peterson, and this is episode 5. Today, we have two extremely talented podcast guests, Doris Mold, the co-CEO of Annie's Project, and Beverly Alvarez-Torres, who founded the Soil Science Ladies Project. I look forward to discussing the role of women in agriculture and soil sciences with these two phenomenal ladies. Before we begin, let's take a moment to introduce each of them. Besides her role as co-CEO of Annie's Project, Doris is also a dairy farmer in Wisconsin. In addition, she is the co-founder of the Women's Ag Leadership Conference, now in its 26th year. Doris also teaches farm and agribusiness management for the University of Minnesota. As if she needed anything else to keep her busy, she is also the founder and president of the agricultural consulting firm Sunrise Agricultural Associates. Doris received both her master's and bachelor's degrees from the University of Minnesota. Welcome, Doris.
Good morning. Glad to be here with you today.
Well, we are so glad to have you. And now I want to introduce our second guest, Beverly Alvarez-Torres, and she is currently a PhD student at North Dakota State University, specializing in soil science with a focus on education and communication. Her work focuses on innovative soil remediation research. Beverly also founded and leads the Soil Science Ladies Project, aimed at empowering women in the soil science field. Originally a native of Puerto Rico, she completed her master's work at the University of Puerto Rico in soil sciences. Welcome, Beverly.
Hi, Lisa. Good morning. It's very nice to be with you here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you to both of you for joining us today. You've both been very involved in the agricultural community. So let's start our podcast out today by giving our listeners a quick background on the organizations you lead that are working to assist and empower women in agriculture. So Doris, I'm going to pick on you first. Can you give us a quick synopsis of the impetus and the vision of Annie's Project?
Annie's Project started in 2003, and it started as the brainchild of Ruth Hambledon. Ruth saw her mother as a young married woman trying to farm alongside her dad, and she was a town girl and really didn't understand what was going on. And she saw her mom kind of struggle in trying to be that helpmate. And then eventually her mother became the farmer because her dad took off-farm work. And so her mother taking over the farm, the barriers that she saw that she had not only in the larger community, but just in understanding how farms worked and how farm management worked, she saw that her mother needed help. And being an extension educator at the time, as an adult, Ruth thought, she was seeing other women struggle even a generation later, and she knew that she had to put something together to help women really understand farming, production, agriculture, to help them be on equal footing with their other family members. And so she started Annie's Project with a group of 10 women in Illinois, and it has gone from there to over 19,000 women that have gone through the courses. Several thousand more have taken more informal programming that we offer. We are now a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are dedicated to providing educational programs designed to strengthen women's roles in modern agricultural enterprises. And our mission is to empower women in agriculture to be successful through education, networks, and resources.
That's awesome. What a organization and what a rich history that you have. How did you personally get involved in Annie's Project?
Well, I've been involved with women in agricultural programming and efforts for a long time, as you heard, the 26 years. I had also been very involved in American Agri-Women and served in national leadership roles there. And at one time was the national president. And the Annie's Project approached me I was very familiar with what they did. They approached me and asked me if I would serve on their board of directors. And so I was serving on their board of directors for several years. And then the board had made the decision that they were going to go into having co-CEOs, well, actually a CEO. And two of us were very interested in the position, and we worked it out. Carisha Devlin, who is my co-CEO, and I worked out how to do the job together rather than going it alone. We both bring different skills, and expertise to the program, and that's how I got started.
Wonderful. Thanks, Doris. It's amazing. You've been involved with an organization for almost 21 years. Well, the organization's been around for 21 years. I'm going to introduce Beverly now and bring her into the conversation. And she's founded an organization that's pretty new and in its infancy. So, Beverly, tell us more about the background of Soil Science Ladies.
Yeah, well, Soil Science Lady at the beginning, it was a hashtag for Instagram because I used it to share my own experience during my during my master degree in grad school in soil science. So at the beginning, it was just an idea to share like what I was passing through the grad school and every day in the field, and I started receiving like questions and comments from other women in soil science, and I just started feeling like, hey, I need to find a way to share all this knowledge with other people around the world that can use it to be successful in their careers, because in soil science you don't have as much women as role models as you can find in other fields like cosmetology or fashion. So basically that is how I started Soil Science Lady.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. What changes or progress have you seen since you started the Soil Science Ladies project?
Well, the development of the project has been very interesting because when Soil Science Ladies started on 2021, it was just me sharing my own experience as woman in soil science. But now we are a team of 5 scientists working on a diverse range of initiatives related with community, research, empowerment, and education. And basically, our mission as a group is to promote gender equality, foster a vibrant community, and provide resources for women to help them to excel in their careers in soil science and related fields. So in that way, in long terms, our vision is to create a global network of women leaders in soil science, united to preserve and celebrate the woman contribution to the field and to empower the next generation of women in soil science by showing them role models in this career and professional field.
Thanks, Beverly. So, if we have somebody listening right now that's in soil sciences and is interested in interacting with the Soil Science Ladies, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, I would love to invite our listeners to visit the website www.soilscienceladies.com, where they will meet amazing women in soil science, learn about grad school, and enjoy our community initiative. As well, I would like to invite them to follow us on Instagram as @soils.science.lady and visit our link in bio because we always put there a special gift for our community.
Awesome. So, Doris, I'm going to go back to you and kind of ask you that same question, right? You said over 19,000 women have participated in your courses. So, some of our listeners might be already pretty familiar with Annie's project. But of those of them that are not, how can they interact with Annie's project in their local area?
Sure. We have a website, and it's anniesproject.org. And there is a interactive map on the website so they can see what courses are being offered at the time. So not all courses are offered all of the time. They kind of ebb and flow depending on workload of our partners. We're in over 38 states and 1 U.S. territory. And then we also have some work that we do internationally. And we have some things that we do nationally. So sometimes anybody can be involved in those courses, but they can go to our website. We have, like I said, interactive place. There's also a place to send emails with questions. And then we have all of our social channels on there as well. So if they want to interact with, Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or X, we have all of that connected there as well. And they can find us in all of those places. Some people might be familiar with what they're seeing more on the state or local level. We work a lot with extension across the country. We work with ag lenders and other ag organizations to promote and put on our programming.
Thanks, Doris. I farm in northern Iowa, and you're right. I've seen a lot of the Annie's Project work through our local extension. So hopefully our listeners are able to find an Annie's Project course near them. Well, as we continue to talk about women in agriculture and the soil sciences, I'm curious, how did each of you get interested in working in this field of building up and supporting women in agriculture? Why don't you start us off, Doris?
Sure. Well, I grew up as a farm kid, and really agriculture is my life, and life is agriculture. So I started from a very early age. I knew I wanted to be a farmer. And as my aunts were dismayed, they said, "Well, you want to marry a farmer?" I said, "No, I want to be a farmer." And so from a very early age, and this might be difficult for some people of younger generations to understand, but I was still of a generation that it was kind of considered weird if you wanted to be a woman farmer, right? So, and I told my dad that I wanted to farm, and he told me not to waste my brain, that I needed to go to college. So I went to college, and I was involved in everything. I was a triple major as an undergrad, and I did anything and everything. And there were a lot of terrific opportunities for women in agriculture, but there were a lot of classes still in meetings that I went to that I might have been the only woman or one of very few women. And I just saw a need for networks, for opportunities for women to join together, for women to, help. I thought, hey, let's do something positive about this, not whine about it, but let's do something active. And so that's really how I got involved, and really have been involved in things, throughout my life, to try to help build confidence in women and in what they're doing, help them network, and help them find resources to help them on their way. And so I think all of those, and that fits very well with what Annie's does. It's not just about taking a course. We have other things that we do. We have informal learning. We have mentoring that goes on. That network that women develop is so key and critical. Women need to see women like the soil science ladies in that field. They need to get interested. They need to be educated and grow their confidence so they can help make decisions on their farms or pursue careers in soil science and crops.
Thanks, Doris. It's fascinating to listen to see how you got involved. And I was sitting here thinking that I kind of bridged the gap between the age differences of you and Beverly. I'm kind of in the middle. And, it's interesting to see in my 20 plus year career what has changed in agriculture. And when I was a high school student, there was 2 of us girls in a class with 12 boys for FFA. And now my kids are in that same FFA program, and I see there's more girls in the class than boys. So it's really interesting to see how much is changing and growing. And so with that, Beverly, I want you to kind of talk too of what got you interested in soil sciences to begin with and in this field?
Well, it was very interesting because my dad is a urban farmer. So I grew up between the school and the farm. I remember that in my home, that was always interesting to talk in the table because when I was in the farm, I was always like covered by soil. And my mom worked on sales. So, if you work on sales and you are dirty, that do not match. So I always need to keep that in mind because, for example, I was on the school and in few hours I need to be in my mom job. So I need to arrive there, with presents and not dirty. And that was so something a little hard to manage when you are a kid because when you are a kid, you are looking for that freedom to be curious and to play with everything. And sometimes that kind of adult aspects can limit the kid's curiosity. So I was very interested in the natural science, especially like in chemistry. So in high school, the most related field in vocational education with chemistry was cosmetology. That was what we have available, and the other option was mechanic. But in mechanic, you don't have any women, just males. So I decided to take cosmetology, but I need to be honest, I spend a lot of my time in mechanics, so I learn a lot from them. And at some point when I decide that, hey, I want to go to college, and I had a lot of barriers because at the beginning my interest was the agricultural science in Maya West, but Maya West is like 1 hour from my home. So during that time, I did not have any car. So based on that, I select another university, but they don't have any agricultural science college. So there, I was able to complete my bachelor degree in biology and in environmental technology with a minor in chemistry. But that was amazing because I was able to participate like in summer internships where I was able to be in contact with agriculture. So at some point I decided that I was very interested in being a scientist specialized in agriculture. And my dad told me like, hey, no, I think that you need to be a police because in agriculture you are not gonna to make any money. And I was like, oh my God, I need to run, but as fast as I can. So I was like, okay, thank you for the information and bye. Just keep going. So I finished my bachelor degree and I started to work into a dairy farm. So during that time, I was able to learn a lot about the dairy farms and how they are like run it. And at some point, my boss just noticed that I was more interested in the antibiotic trace that we can have in the soil than in the cows. So he told me like, hey, maybe you can explore the idea of complete a master degree in soil science. And I was like, hey, where I can do that? And he told me about the first university option that I was exploring. So I started like contact professors, and after that I contact my mentor, and we had a great time for during 4 years completing my master degree in soil salinity. And during that time I was able to make a great network with people in USA and scientists around the world. And finally I finished here in North Dakota doing my PhD in soil science, and very supported by the people that are around me in the soil science lady project. So yeah, that is basically how I begin.
Wow, that's great.
I love it. You've had quite a path to get to where you are
Yeah,
today.
yeah, that's right.
If I can just interject something, I just think it's really interesting, how you started on this farm and then you started thinking about that relationship between the cattle and the land. And
Yeah,
I think that so many of us kind of downplay that. I mean, soil science and the land really is the basis for everything that we do on the farm,
yeah,
right? And so if you're operating a dairy farm and you're growing crops or pasture or whatever you're doing, I mean, having that understanding of soil and the importance of that soil really is, I mean, it's the basis for all of our food production. And we don't pay enough attention to that. So I think it's really interesting how your curious mind went from, I'm with these dairy cows. And when they treat them for an infection, how, mastitis, how
I love
that treatment might be impacting the soil. That
yeah.
is just really cool.
Yeah, that is what my boss told me. Like, hey, maybe you need to think about a master in soil science instead of being here because you are worried about that.
Good advice from that person as well. That's really terrific.
Yeah, I really appreciate that advice.
excellent advice. And, I think, Doris, you bring up a really good point. I'm on third generation on our family farm. Never, ever thought that I would be back and be able to farm, but, thankful to be able to do that. But, I think about growing up and just in the last few years, a farmer would have never used the term the soil microbiome. Right. We would have just never had that conversation. And I think it's really exciting for me to see where we're going now in soil science and soil biology, and just as at the farm level, starting to pay attention to that more, right? Like, and that's where we see this explosion of biologicals coming as well. And looking at different things from a soil microbiome and soil health, which we never focused on, right? My grandfather plowed. It was jet black, turn it over moldboard plow, to now looking at our reduced tillage, minimum tillage, no tillage, as well as cover crops, all the different things that we're starting to do and the tools that we're using as a farmer.
Well, and just how attitudes have so dramatically changed that, that having a cover crop in your field doesn't make it look like there's a bunch of weeds growing. So for so long, farmers had it kind of drilled into their head, your fields must be clean. And what will the neighbors say if, and we've learned, right, that having that continuous cover makes such a huge difference in the soil. So just really an exciting field, and kudos to you for Beverly, for kind of venturing out of, what you started life as, and kind of keep going, even though people said, oh, well, I don't think you should do this, that you just kept going and finding your way and finding people to support you. And I think that's important for all of us, right?
Yeah, because usually the people that tell you like, hey, this is not the best option for you, usually they don't visualize themselves in that position. So don't believe in them. You just need to keep going, and believe in your vision of your future. That's the best way.
So Beverly, you had a good lead into of the future. So let's head, and Doris, let's head there, of where do you see the future heading for women in agriculture and the organizations that you're working with? I'll leave it pretty broad, but what's next? Beverly, you want to start on this one?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I would like to start with it because I think that my ambition for the future may looks a little bit similar to Annie's project at the beginning, because right now what we envision for the next couple of months, maybe 1 2 years, is to achieve some funding for the project, because right now we are a team working with all our initiatives, but we are a non-funded project. And it's so hard because, when you have a website, you need to pay for the domain, you need to pay for many resources. And it's a little hard because sometimes you have people that can donate to the project by teachers or with the stickers, but in reality the kind of funds that can help projects like Soil Science Lady, because it's not just me, it's a lot of new projects that are just starting, is the agricultural funds. So I know that they are scientists writing proposals for research in amazing scientific discoveries. But we need to remember that to make that discoveries possible, we need the workforce, we need the people. And we need to make research in how the people is feeling with this field. So for us, the future looks a little bit like looking for funding to continue with the development of the project, and also publishing our findings and our insights related with women in soil science. Because sometimes as scientists we are very focused in the hypotheses and in the lab, but we need to figure out how to engage with women, how to retain women, and how to make the call to action of the woman for the next generation of scientists. So I think that for us, that is the next steps within the project. So what about you, Doris?
Well, we have lots of plans. So as we said earlier, we celebrated 20 years last year, and we kind of took a step back and looked at, okay, what all does the universe need as far as women in agriculture, so both production, agriculture, and beyond. And we are looking at expanding our programming throughout more states and territories, and doing eventually more international programming. We're just going to be starting a project in conservation planning for women producers that we're working with the NRCS. So that's pretty exciting. So we're looking at expanding the curriculum, we saw one of our big needs, especially as it is connected to soil science, is that women want and need to learn more about soil science and conservation practices and those types of topics. And so we're looking at expanding our knowledge base there amongst our women participants, offering more advanced courses in not only soil science, but in financial management and all the different areas of risk management.
Thanks, Doris. As we wrap up the podcast today, what would you tell young women who are listening to this podcast and interested in soil science?
Well, to young women interested in soil science, I will say that your passion and dedication will pay off in long term, but it will. And so keep pushing forward and never doubt of your abilities. Believe in yourself because you already have the seeds of success with you. So stay curious, keep learning, and embrace opportunities to explore and contribute to the field of soil science. I think that that is the best way to start and finish your career in soil science. Just keep pushing and believe in you.
Thanks, Beverly. That's great advice to young women entering to the field. And Doris, I'm going to turn to you. You've had more experience in the field, right? You've had a number of years in your career. So as you look back on your career in agriculture and in soil science, what would you tell young women listening today and maybe mid-career women listening today?
I'd like to piggyback on some of the things that Beverly said. Having that confidence in yourself is really important, but also seeking allies, a network, and I think, joining something like Soil Science Ladies and getting involved in that, becoming involved in things like Annie's Project or other types of efforts, becoming involved in organizations and professional societies and whatever to help, develop that network is really key. And finding yourself good mentors. You're never too old to have a mentor, and seek new people. And some of your mentors may end up being younger than you. So maybe it should be find a mentoring relationship, because I think that there are things that I seek out people of all different backgrounds and areas of expertise and different ages and people that identify in all different ways. And I think having a diversity of people that mentor you, that you have a mentoring relationship with, maybe it's a back and forth. One day you're the mentor, one day they're the mentor, but having people, never stop learning.
Yeah.
Right. And seeking places to gather knowledge and information and confidence and resources is really important.
I think that's excellent advice, Doris. I love that never stop learning, right? We can always continue to grow in our knowledge and grow in what we're doing. Well, I want to thank both of you for your leadership in supporting agriculture and supporting women in agriculture specifically. And I just encourage you to keep up the good work. Both of you are in very different spaces, and that's what it takes, right? It takes all of us to support and encourage and also to just keep learning. Unfortunately, our time has gone by way too fast. So I want to thank you again for sharing your experiences with us and your expertise. And also thanks to you, our listeners, for joining us today as well. This has been episode 5 in Sustaining Soils podcast, brought to you by Valent Biosciences. And you can find Valent on X at Valent Biosci. Also, you can find Valent at LinkedIn and YouTube at Valent Biosciences, and the website is valentbiosciences.com. Well, we look forward to having you join us for our next podcast. And do us a favor, please. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more like-minded individuals like you. Until next time, have a great day.